Welcome in on a Tuesday, everybody. I'm Reed Count. All right, feeling hot and craving a cool down? You are not alone. See the people there in the park? We're talking school closures in some parts of the country and work to keep you safe in many communities. Plus, hostages home as Israel continues its strikes in Gaza. Defense forces say one more has been rescued, one of more than 100 held by Hamas. This is CBS News 24/7. Let's go. Okay, but first, right off the top, our live monitor is taking us to breaking news out of Atlanta's airport. Reports say 2 people are dead, another injured. Apparently, a tire exploded inside the Delta Airlines maintenance area. A Delta employee and a contractor died in this accident. The person injured, we understand, is also a Delta employee. So as soon as we learn more, as soon as we see it, you'll see it here on the stream. CBS News 24/7 watching this one closely. Let's go to the Middle East now, where you are looking at a hostage now free in an Israeli hospital after IDF forces rescued him from Hamas out of the Gaza Strip. CBS News correspondent Ian Lee joining us live from London. Ian, what do we know about this hostage and what do we know about the rescue?
Hi, Reed. Yeah, Israel is withholding a lot of the details about this hostage rescue. That might be because they hope they can rescue other hostages in a similar manner or at least not reveal their tactics. But what we know is Israeli special forces found Qaid al-Qaidi in a tunnel. And this is significant because he's the first hostage to be rescued from a tunnel. All the others were rescued above ground. Israel has now rescued a total of 8 hostages alive. Al-Qaidi, he was working as a security guard at a nearby factory when he was kidnapped by Hamas on October 7th. He had been held in Gaza for 326 days. After being rescued, he was airlifted to a medical center in Beersheba, where doctors say he's in good medical conditions. Now, families who have loved ones being held hostage in Gaza, they're watching this. They're hoping that their family members, their friends might be rescued in a similar fashion. But many believe that the only way to get them out is likely through negotiations.
Ian, you see him there in that hospital surrounded by so many people, so glad that he's alive. But also you have to wonder if he is not going to be used as also intelligence for the network of tunnels and what goes on in the tunnels.
Yeah, Reed, you know, the tunnel system in Gaza, which I've actually gone into in my reporting, I've seen them, is a network. It is a maze. They're elaborate. They go for miles, and so it is very difficult to navigate them. So he will probably give them critical information about who's down there, where are they, what tunnels haven't been destroyed. As we know, over the past almost a year, Israel has been targeting these tunnels. So he will likely be able to give some information to Israeli forces, possibly to help rescue other hostages, but anything that they can get, they will very much value.
Ian Lee reporting live from London. You've been there, you know, and that's why we're always so glad to have you on the stream with us. Thank you so much. All right, so let's get back to the fight to take the White House. Each campaign, they're sending their surrogates out to appeal to you, the voter. So for the Harris-Walz team, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren is in Wisconsin. She's talking women's rights and your wallet. Meantime, Team Trump is in the Midwest right now, and that's where we find CBS News campaign reporter Tarian Small. He's embedded with Republican VP nominee J.D. Vance. They're at a horse farm, of all places. Any word on his message today?
Yeah, Reed, we're expected to see the Republican vice presidential nominee, J.D. Vance, continue to be the key messenger for the former president's policy proposals. Today, we're told a conversation he's going to have with the folks here will be focused on the economy. We're told that he's expected to draw a contrast between the economies under the Biden administration and under the former president, Donald Trump's administration. Look, he's planning to really tether Kamala Harris as the key leading factor to high inflation and what he calls an underperforming economy, although she was just the vice president. As we move forward, a lot of these attacks have been focused solely on Vice President Harris, more so than Joe Biden, as she is, as you know, the Democratic presidential nominee moving forward.
Whenever we see these outdoor rallies, we are, of course, reminded of the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. It was deadly for one person who was attending. Any security concerns there? Any sign of what we've seen in other outdoor rallies since then, such as bulletproof glass?
Yeah, Reed, it's funny that you mentioned that because this is the first solo rally for J.D. Vance that will have that bulletproof glass casing around the podium. He previously attended an event with Donald Trump last week where that was the case, but this is the first time on his own. It's yet to be seen if that will be the standard protocol for him moving forward, but this is a larger than normal rally for him. He's been having these smaller campaign events focused on different policy-driven messages, so this one is slightly different, although, again, he is expected to talk solely about the economy today.
All right, always glad to have you on the stream. Tareen Small, we appreciate you so much. Meantime, the Trump campaign getting word that their fight against special counsel Jack Smith's classified documents case might not be over after all. We're understanding that Smith is pushing an appeals court to bring that case back to life after a federal judge tossed the criminal case last month, essentially saying Smith was unlawfully appointed. Well, Smith defended his role and appointment, arguing against that judge's decision and appealing for new consideration in that case, where Donald Trump was charged with mishandling sensitive government documents taken from the White House at the end of his presidency. All right, top labor leaders representing millions of American workers will be major players in deciding the presidential election and, of course, also the balance of power in Congress. We're talking about the American Federation of Labor and the Congress of Industrial Organizations. They held their annual State of the Unions address today, as they call it. Here's AFL-CIO President Liz Shuler.
Today is about the next chapter. It's about workers continuing to find their power in two very distinct ways. First, we are the ones who are going to decide this election. In these swing states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, that are going to come down to 1%, 2%, union voters are 20% of the electorate.
CBS News political reporter Aaron Navarro joins us live on the stream from Washington, D.C. Aaron, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, so unions are always coveted territory, right, for any political candidate. But why are they especially important this election cycle?
Reed, good to be with you. Yeah, President Shuler earlier in her remarks said that unions are, quote, battle ready. And that is welcome news for the Harris campaign, who believes that getting the union vote, not just from the leaders, but the rank and file members, should be done by the unions. They think they are the most effective messengers. And they're really looking at labor union voters for good reason. They believe that there are at least 2.7 million of them in the battleground states alone. That's why they've been paying so much attention to them. About a fifth of the delegates at the convention in Chicago were either retired or are actively part of a union. So the Harris campaign is trying to really replicate the support that President Biden had. Scranton Joe, as he was referred to by many of these union leaders. They know that Democrats, at least recently, have been winning with labor union members, but they're aware that Trump could cut into that lead by appeasing to some of the more rank and file members.
And, you know, a lot of the focus is on the presidential election, but also the balance of power in Congress. Take Nevada, for instance, key battleground state. The culinary union in the state of Nevada looms very large, a very big voter bloc there. Why is that state so important right now when we look at the race for power in Congress?
Well, it's part of that Sun Belt. You have a Senate race there as well. And the Senate right now is such a close margin for Democrats. So they're taking a big look at that. The Culinary Union Local 226 has been involved. They were one of the first to endorse President Biden earlier this cycle, endorsed Vice President Harris. And members and representatives for them tell me that they're going to start knocking on doors for not just Harris, but Democrats up and down the ballot as they realize that they will be crucial to the power in Congress.
A lot of Kamala Harris's economic plan really hinges on whether Democrats can control Congress. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate you joining us on the stream today. Okay, when we come back, so many of you in the United States dealing with intense heat, and there is a fallout there. It means school's out. We'll be back in just a minute. Live video to our monitors from Philadelphia, where Mother Nature is speeding the heat. Okay, so here's your headline. For a second day in a row, several schools in that area will close early because the temperatures are just too high. Here's CBS News Philadelphia's Eva Anderson.
Tuesday marked the second day of school for Philadelphia public school students. Some 200,000 students went back to school, and already on the second day, 63 district buildings released 3 hours early. That's due to not being adequately air conditioned. The district is working as quickly as they can to install AC units in all of their buildings. Over the summer, 199 air conditioning units were installed in 8 district buildings. However, 63 buildings remain that are not adequately cooled, and what that means is not all classrooms and office spaces are air conditioned. In fact, they say by the end of September, they're working to get 2 more district buildings cooled. And Monday, a representative for the district said that by the end of the school year, they're working to get that number of 63 inadequately cooled buildings to under 60. So they're working as quickly as they can. The problem that they're facing is a lot of these buildings are very, very old, some a century old, and they have old electrical systems that are very costly and very complex to work on upgrading. So it takes a lot of high-level engineering and a lot of logistical planning to make that happen. We checked in with lots of parents and guardians to see how this is affecting their day. They were, of course, counting on their kids heading back to school, having a full, safe place to stay during what, for many, is a full work day. And a lot of parents we spoke with said that they're having to leave work early, call out of work, make adjustments, perhaps even cancel doctor's appointments to pick up their kids earlier than expected. But for many of these parents whose children are returning to schools that aren't adequately cooled, they've had to plan for this in years past, meaning they have kids who are going to these schools year after year that are on that list of releasing early. The district says they will continue to monitor the heat and make adjustments throughout the rest of the beginning of the school year. They say even into September, they do expect to have more early dismissals. And Wednesday, the third day of school, 63 schools also plan on dismissing early that day as well. Reporting for CBS News Philadelphia, I'm Eva Anderson.
While extreme heat and severe storms are forecasted today, anywhere from Kansas stretching all the way over into New York. Here's what's happening as we head into the next couple days. We know we're well above average when it comes to areas all the way down into Las Vegas, Phoenix, another good example, where daytime highs today are sitting in the triple digits. Now, as we head all the way over into the Midwest, all the way off into Chicago even, you see 90s on the map, but what you're needing to remember is the fact that this area, they deal with a lot of relative humidity. And so their feels like temperature today is anywhere up to around 110 degrees. And that's the big reason why the National Weather Service has issued heat advisories and excessive heat warnings that will last into the evening hours tonight, early morning hours tomorrow. And if you see all that gray on that map too, air quality alerts are also in effect in that region. So here's what's happening. Right behind me, you'll see our heat risk map stretching anywhere from, like I mentioned, Kansas, stretching all the way up into New York. Well above average temperatures are expected today and tomorrow. And taking a look at Futurecast into the overnight hours tonight, throughout the next 24 hours, we have pop-up storms that will continue to stretch all throughout Illinois, over into Indiana, into the early morning hours tomorrow. So there is a severe weather outlook in this region, stretching anywhere from Nebraska all the way up into Wisconsin, a marginal to slight risk for the evening hours tonight, meaning we could see damaging winds in this region. Yesterday, we got up to around 70-mile-per-hour winds all the way over into Minneapolis. This system is starting to move its way off into the east, and it continues to do so into the overnight hours tonight. A tornado threat still in risk anywhere from Michigan all the way over into Madison, Wisconsin. Reed?
All right, thank you. Let's take the temperature of the American economy. CBS News 24/7 just got our hands on a new report. It's out today showing that many of you in the United States feel more confident about the economy and more optimistic about the next 6 years. In fact, a live look at the big board right now off of our monitors. This is really showing we're down a little bit right now, an easing after market highs yesterday. The Dow is now showing a negative territory, but we'll continue watching that throughout the afternoon. Let's talk about it. You want experts? We have experts. CBS News contributor J.D. Durkin. He joins us now live from the New York Stock Exchange. We are seeing a little bit dipping our toe into negative territory there. Let's begin with the consumer report. Break down the numbers for us and what it means for the economy.
Well, Reed, that's right. I mean, I think the overall headline from the consumer board itself, really, or the conference board, rather, responsible for the survey, it really tells the story here. And the headline is overall confidence ticked up but consumers showed more concern about the state of the U.S. labor market. Overall, you're exactly right. We are seeing confidence move in a better direction. People say they feel a little bit better about their economic situation today and into the future than previous times we've taken this survey. But one of the things that central bank officials, Reid, are following is the ongoing deterioration of U.S. labor market conditions. And we are really seeing that reflected with how consumers have responded to the survey. A little bit less secure, perhaps, in their job prospects. For instance, when consumers are asked questions like, how confident would you be in getting a job 6 months from now if you needed one, we're starting to see some of those responses tick down. Overall, I would argue it's a bit of a Goldilocks report. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. It reinforces the central bank's path forward on cutting interest rates, and it seems to largely alleviate the overall concerns we had last year about a U.S. recession in the American economy.
Well, something a lot of people talk about, whether they want to get into the housing market or they're in that housing market. We're talking about home prices now. New data shows that they hit a record high in June, up 5.4% from last year. What does that tell us about the housing market, not only today, but maybe going forward in the next 6 months?
I mean, I think it says if you are a home buyer now or you're on the sidelines and you want to be a home buyer, we're all in wait and see mode right now. I mean, yes, we are expecting the central bank to cut interest rates on September 18th, Reid, but we can't forget it doesn't mean that 30-year fixed rate mortgage is going to immediately follow. It is the ultimate lagging indicator of the housing market, meaning once you start to get those Fed rate cuts into the system, it takes a really long time. We heard from a Wells Fargo economist say 18 months from now, yeah, we might start to see that mortgage number start to come down a little bit, but we're still a really far way off from that. 20 different cities, I thought this was interesting, was profiled in that report. No surprise here in New York City, where I call home, saw the highest year-over-year home pricing gains, followed then by San Diego, California, and finally Las Vegas, Nevada. Ultimately, I think if you're on the sidelines or you're an existing home buyer, you're waiting for both interest rates and home prices to fall before you start to consider to, as you say, dip your toe into the home buying pool next year.
All right, J.D. Durkin, CBS News contributor, we appreciate you so much. Go get a good lunch there in the Big Apple for us. Meanwhile, and you heard J.D. talk about Las Vegas, we're not going to talk about their housing prices right now. We're going to be talking about a criminal trial that has not only riveted people in Las Vegas, not only in Nevada, but also all across the country. A former politician, and right now a jury is considering his fate, whether they see him as he's been prosecuted, which is a prosecuted murderer. We'll be back in just a minute live from that courtroom. All right, let's go to Las Vegas, Nevada right now, where the fate of a former politician accused of murdering a reporter who wrote critical articles about him, it's now in the hands of a jury, or very close to being in the hands of a jury. CBS News correspondent Carter Evans is live from the Las Vegas courthouse where this is all playing out. Carter, there was some last-minute drama to talk about here right before the jury got their instructions.
Yes, and this happened during closing arguments. Defense attorneys bringing up a piece of evidence that the prosecution had already entered in and it had already been discussed. It was a video of the suspect vehicle driving by a security camera. It was a wide shot. But what the defense attorney did was he zoomed in on that, and you could clearly see a profile of a driver in there, and that driver had hair. So Robert Tellus, the defendant in this case, he is bald. Now, the prosecution didn't get a chance really to respond to this because this was entered in, or it was discussed during closing arguments. So then the jury went into the jury room and they have to figure this out. Now, is this something that is really going to impact the jury's case? We weren't really sure until the jury asked a question last night. Can you send a technician in here and show us how to do the video? They are looking closer at some evidence again, and what many observers might be a clear-cut case here has now continued into a second day of delays.
All right, Carter Evans, thank you so much. To our viewers, just want to let you know Carter is coming to us live from what is very much a very thick cement building there in downtown Las Vegas from the courthouse. So what you would have been able to hear Carter talk about more is that this all started, that former politician in Las Vegas accused of murdering a reporter who was with the Las Vegas Review-Journal who wrote negative stories about Mr. Tellus. So what he was bringing us up to speed on is that last-minute development there, that Tellus's defense team introduced that photo into evidence that showed somebody in a car with hair. Of course, Tellus does not have hair. So we'll be watching that one. In fact, just a moment ago before we went on air, Carter told us he may be here another day because of that late-breaking development. We'll be watching that one closely. Let's go to the Midwest now and talk some politics. Vice presidential nominee for the Republican Party, J.D. Vance, is in Michigan. So here is what he had to say to voters in that very key, very crucial battleground state just a moment ago.
Now, last week, the biggest heist in American history happened right under Kamala Harris's nose. Somebody stole 818,000 jobs that she and Tim Walz have been bragging about. Y'all see that? Where'd they go? Now, you may not have heard this because our friends in the back, the media, doesn't like to talk about it, but what really happened is this. The Harris administration had to admit that more than a quarter of all the jobs that had supposedly been created last year were actually fake. They never existed. It was the biggest revision to the job numbers since the financial crisis back in 2008, 2009. In other words, what it means is they are cooking the books to hide how bad the economy really is under Kamala Harris. I promise you this, on November 5th, there is one job that is definitely going to vanish, and that is when we tell Kamala Harris, you are fired, and send her back to San Francisco. Now, y'all are fired up, and it's hot out here. Kamala Harris, she needs a rock star to get a crowd like this. We just come out here because we're patriots and we want to save this country. Now, Kamala, I don't know if you noticed, if you paid attention to the news lately, Kamala has decided that the American people don't like her policies, and she's exactly right about that. Just take one, immigration. Kamala Harris, remember, she suspended deportations on day one. She stopped Donald Trump's Remain in Mexico policy. That was on day one, and that's why we have a wide-open southern border. But I read a story this morning that her advisors are considering just copying all of Donald Trump's policies. They're more popular. In fact, I've heard that for her debate in just a couple of weeks, she's going to put on a Navy suit, a long red tie, and adopt the slogan, "Make America Great Again." I think that's what... But we're not going to let the American people forget that Kamala Harris is the candidate of American decline. She cast the tie-breaking vote for the Inflation Explosion Act. She cast the tie-breaking vote to send interest rates and mortgages through the roof. She opened that border on day one, and as much as fake Kamala wants to pretend that she now agrees with Donald Trump, we've got to remind her she's the vice president right now. Stop talking about what you're going to do. Start talking about what you are going to do right now because you're the vice president. And what she has done has been a disaster. Now, I will confess that in some ways I have a soft heart, ladies and gentlemen. In some ways I feel bad for Kamala Harris. They don't. You don't. But I'm not sure that this is a woman who knows what she actually believes. She is, if you think about it, she's just a cog in the wheel of a very corrupt system. Now let's go back in time a few years and just remember the formula of Kamala Harris and her handlers and what it wrecked. Now step one was to ship all of our good manufacturing jobs to Mexico, to China, to far-flung corners all over the world. Remember, Kamala Harris supported the reauthorization of NAFTA, which has been terrible for the state of Michigan, the state of Ohio, and the state of Pennsylvania. Proud towns became ghost towns. Dignified American workers became dependent on the government, and families, including a lot of families like mine, fell apart under financial stress. Now that was step one. Did we ask for any of that? Now here's step two. Step two is open our border to millions of illegal immigrants. And into that void of joblessness, poured drugs and a lot of cheap labor. Our leadership, including Kamala Harris, they said it was compassionate, but it was a lie. What they really wanted, my friends, was millions of voters for Democrat policies, and they wanted millions of cheap laborers. American wages went down, and our leaders learned they could ignore their own citizens in their quest for power. Now, that was step 2, and I asked, did we ask for that? Now, the next step was a lot of stupid foreign policy. Our leaders couldn't deliver prosperity, but they could deliver war and conflict. So we invaded countries all over the world, and then we invited other countries to invade us through illegal immigration. Our people got poorer, our leaders got richer, and they got more powerful. Now, that was step 3, and I asked, did we ask for that? Now, I've lived, and I know a lot of us in this crowd have lived the consequences of these failures. And I saw it very personally, my friends. My parents divorced. My family began to struggle. My mom, God love her, she found solace in the prescription pain pills that a lot of kids and a lot of adults were getting hooked on. And then eventually she moved on to some harder stuff. Now, I will tell you that I thought I would lose my mom when I was a kid. And I prayed every single day that she would somehow find her way to a second chance. And I'm very proud, my friends, to tell you, not only did my mom find a second chance, but she's here with us today, campaigning with me in the state of Michigan. Now, she is, I will say, the best grandmother that my kids could ask for. They are 7, 4, and 2. Spoils them a little bit too much. Mom, no more Pokemon cards. In front of 1,000 people, no more Pokemon cards. The kids have got enough. But I know that a lot of Americans prayed for that second chance, and thank God we got it. But a lot of Americans prayed for other things. They prayed for good jobs. They prayed for their towns to have prosperity. They prayed for their parents to overcome the scourge of addiction, and in 2016, a lot of those prayers were answered, my friends, weren't they? After a generation of Americans being ignored by their leaders, Americans spoke with a unified voice, and you know what they said? They said, no more bullshit, and they sent Donald J. Trump to the White House. Now, the same people who screwed this country up for 30 years said President Donald Trump would fail. Remember that? And I remember I was myself, I didn't fully believe in the promises of Donald Trump. He persuaded me because he did such a good job. What happened next? Let's all remember. Gas was $2 a gallon. Housing was affordable for young and old alike. Wages were rising, and this word inflation, that's all people talk about now, it wasn't even an issue. We had broad prosperity for every American, rich and poor. Donald Trump stopped the stupid wars and stood up to the bad guys all over the world. He recognized what our failed leadership didn't, that weakness invites American boys and girls to wars that they shouldn't have to fight. American strength promotes peace, and we had a hell of a lot of peace when Donald J. Trump was the President of the United States. I gotta get whatever we fed these guys behind me. They're having a good time. Our border, my friends, our border was secure. Overdose deaths were coming down where they had gone up for 15 years. And a lot of people who struggled in my hometown had good jobs and good prosperity, and it happened all across the state of Michigan and Ohio. My mom, she got clean and she stayed clean. That was my personal victory that happened. And for every lie, remember, for every lie they told about Donald J. Trump, he just kept on plugging away at doing the American people's business. He did it so well, we had take-home pay rising faster than it had in 30 years. Our corrupt leadership, remember this, our corrupt leadership said, if you put tariffs on China, prices will go up. Instead, Donald Trump did exactly that. Manufacturing came back and prices went down for American citizens. They went up for the Chinese, but they went down for our people. Because when you make your own stuff with the hands of American workers, the whole country prospers. We know that in Michigan better than anywhere. Now, our corrupt leadership said if you enforce the border, people south of the border are going to suffer. But Donald Trump recognized that his first responsibility as president was to the American citizen and not to anybody else. So he shut down that border. He shut off the drug trade. He drove the cartels out of business, and he had overdose deaths falling in this country. What an amazing thing it was. Remember, our corrupt leadership said that you can't defeat ISIS. Remember that? Just a few years ago, they said we're going to have to re-invade Iraq to defeat ISIS. Donald Trump defeated ISIS in a matter of weeks, and then he brought America's sons and daughters home. What an amazing, amazing track record of leadership. But let's be honest, the country wasn't broken in 4 years, and 4 years was not enough time to root out all of the corruption. So while Americans were getting richer, a lot of bureaucrats and globalists were getting poorer. That was the story of Trump's term. So Kamala Harris, she and her corrupt handlers, they came up with a plan. Now, they couldn't beat Donald Trump in an honest debate, so they decided to engage in censorship. They were going to censor Donald Trump, and they were going to censor his supporters. Now, remember, back in 2020, they lied about Biden's corruption and covered up the fact that his family got rich by selling access to the United States government. And Kamala Harris was there for all of it. They lied about the Hunter Biden laptop and encouraged big tech to silence the story, and they did. They lied about COVID coming from a Chinese lab, and they censored anybody who disagreed. Kamala Harris even went on national TV and said Joe Biden was as sharp as a tack. Even he was clearly mentally incompetent to do the job, and so it's obvious what's been going on, right? Kamala Harris has been calling the shots. And by lying about his mental fitness for the job, she got what she always wanted, which was more power. And what was the result? On her watch, gas prices are up 50%. Housing costs have doubled. You talk to a young person today, young people cannot afford to buy a home in their own country. We're turning a generation of 20 and 30-year-olds into permanent debtors. Donald Trump and I believe young people ought to own a stake in their own country, be able to build a life and start a family. That's what we're fighting for. Grocery prices under Kamala Harris are up 21%, and I think that undercounts it. A record number of Americans are working multiple jobs. The housing market is as unaffordable as it has ever been. And the average new car costs nearly $50,000. Americans, this is heartbreaking. We now owe more than $1 trillion in credit card debt, a record high at a time when interest rates are going up and up. That's not all she did, my friends. She isn't just causing high prices, she is undoing the incredible work that Donald Trump did to rebuild American manufacturing. Now, we stand very close, of course, to the new Goshen factory, right? That's right. And remember the tie-breaking vote that she cast to send inflation through the roof. Remember that vote? That vote also made Chinese companies like Goshen eligible for millions of your taxpayer dollars. Now, the great Mike Rogers, who's running for Senate, has been a champion on this issue. Thank you, Mike, for doing what you do. There we go, stand up. But it's not just great, it's not just the really good ones like Mike Rogers. Even some of the folks in Obama's administration said that the Goshen factory plant is a threat to America's national security. Even Obama's leadership. But Kamala Harris not only wants to allow the Chinese Communist Party to build factories on American
You are
soil,
listening to Republican Vice Presidential nominee J.D. Vance speaking about the economy in Big Rapids, Michigan. J.D. Vance, and you see some strategy there. He is doing his level best to tie Kamala Harris to all of the Biden-Harris policies the last few years. He wants to tell his voters that he would like to check the box, yes, for Trump-Vance in the voting booth in November, that they are solely responsible for what we pay at the grocery store, what we pay at the gas tank. So J.D. Vance really driving that home to voters in Michigan there. Meanwhile, we also know that Elizabeth Warren, who also ran for president, is out stumping for Kamala Harris right now. We're watching that one closely. It's important that we try on the stream to bring you all perspectives, so we'll be doing that as well. Also, it's important to note that what J.D. Vance just said there will be tested at the debate October 1st on CBS with Governor Tim Walz. That is when the vice presidential candidates will go head-to-head, and some of those assertions that you're hearing them talk about on the campaign trail will be tested in real time live on CBS. Of course, we are now in that phase where the candidates talk about each other, but very soon we're going to get to the phase where the candidates talk to each other. That will be very fascinating. Okay, let's move on. This just in. The health department in New Hampshire has reported a man has died from Eastern equine encephalitis. What is that? It's a rare but serious disease, and it's spread by infected mosquitoes. So in this particular case we're telling you about, the man who died had severe central nervous system disease. So far this summer, that virus has been found in 1 horse and 7 groups of mosquitoes, all in New Hampshire. So we'll be watching that one closely. Okay, so this is a case that continues to get headlines also out of Las Vegas. New details on the man accused of killing Tupac Shakur. A Las Vegas judge denied a former Los Angeles gang leader's request to be released on bond. There he is. You might remember Dwayne Davis is accused of killing hip-hop star Tupac Shakur in 1996. Well, attorney for him said he would provide financial records to prove the money is legit and legal, but the Clark County District Judge says she suspects a cover-up related to where Davis's bond money comes from. Case in point, the judge is watching the money and saying, stay put. Well, the American soldier charged with desertion when he ran over the border to North Korea is expected to plead guilty in a plea deal. We're talking about Travis King and a guilty plea coming in September. In fact, on the 20th, when he will also be sentenced. That will happen at Fort Bliss in Texas. King escaped the eyes of his peers at an airport in South Korea and ended up crossing into North Korea before that nation shipped him right back to the United States. Okay, let's jump the map to the state of Arizona now, where we have our eyes on a hearing where a judge will consider a request to dismiss charges against Republicans accused of trying to overturn the 2020 presidential election. So a grand jury indicted 18 Republicans, including Donald Trump's former attorney, Rudy Giuliani. If that judge denies the request for dismissal, trial date is set for January 2026. Let's stay on the map, but let's jump over to Florida. A SpaceX mission is on hold for now. So the company pushed the launch of Polaris Dawn, as they've called it, to tomorrow because of a reported helium leak. So you will see that picture for at least 24 more hours. Moving now to the historic mission to talk about the crew up there. The civilian crew of 4 will be up in orbit in a record height above Earth. In fact, more than 3 times higher than the International Space Station. The mission will also attempt the first ever commercial spacewalk. Let's come back to Earth in the Lone Star State and talk about a gift from the skies in the form of thunder, lightning, and rain. It brought some relief to Texans there who've been sweltering under triple-digit temperatures, so hot they can't even get out in the pool. Well, this is video from DFW, or the Dallas-Fort Worth area, where Texans in the Metroplex are dealing with more active weather, and Jess is watching that.
All throughout the continental U.S. right now, we are dealing with active weather, but let's head over to the tropics real fast. Over in the Atlantic, it's calm. I can't say that's the case as we head over into the Pacific, though. Here's what's going on. We have 3 storms still all close to Hawaii. And as we head into the coming days, we're going to continue to see some of them actually impact the islands once again. Let's actually drop the map real fast and head into what's happening as we head into the coming days. Tropical storm Hone is officially starting to move all the way off into the east. And throughout the next couple days, we'll continue to watch that no longer impact the islands of Hawaii. However, thousands are without power right now, and they did deal with some heavy flooding and a lot of winds, too, just from that system. Here's what we're gearing up for now. Hurricane Gilma still well east of the islands of Hawaii. As we continue to head into the next couple days, that will track just north of the islands. And it starts to decay pretty quick, turning into a tropical depression by the time it makes its way there. Still staying around 45 to 35 mile per hour winds as it hits close to Honolulu, though. Now, as we head all the way over into the next named storm, Tropical Storm Hector, no factor whatsoever. That's going to stay well offshore and potentially track all the way to the south by the time it turns into a tropical depression. So as we take a look at the next 3 storms, like I mentioned, the first one's no longer a factor. The next one will bring some heavier rain just to the northern portions of those islands. Tropical Storm Hector, not an impact whatsoever, Reed.
I swear this summer, no meteorologist anywhere is getting a break. Jessica, thank you so much.
Of course.
All right, so when we come back, we're going to take you to Brooklyn, where we are hearing of a major fire. And the reality right now, so many people are without a place to live. What happened, where it happened, and the people affected in your communities when we come back. Welcome back. A voting rights uproar in the state of Texas. So the largest Latin American civil rights organization wants a federal investigation of the Texas Attorney General claiming his office authorized illegal searches at the homes of volunteers. So here's the backstory on this. Attorney General Ken Paxton says he is investigating alleged election fraud and efforts to register non-citizens to vote. CBS News correspondent Omar Villafranca is in San Antonio.
It is evident through his patterns of lawsuits, raids, searches, and seizures that he is trying to keep Latinos from voting.
Members of the League of United Latin American Citizens had strong words for Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton on Monday.
I just have a message for that Attorney General. You can come get me. You can do whatever the hell you think you want to do with me, but we're going to fight back.
It comes after Paxton announced an investigation last week into allegations of election fraud and vote harvesting, which began in 2022. The Attorney General's office said it had uncovered enough evidence to obtain search warrants, which they executed last Tuesday across 3 different counties. LULAC denies any wrongdoing. The organization sent a letter to the Justice Department, first obtained by CBS News, asking it to conduct an investigation into the Attorney General's actions, calling them, quote, a serious violation of the civil rights of Latino citizens.
They scared the hell out of me.
87-year-old Lydia Martinez says she was among those targeted by the search warrants. The longtime LULAC member helps senior citizens register to vote.
I feel that they're going to stop a lot of us from going out and doing our work, and that's what they want.
She said officers questioned her for hours, confiscated her phone and computer, and made her wait outside as they searched her home.
I said, let me get dressed. And she said, oh, go outside.
What were you wearing?
My nightgown, and I had all these policemen around me. It was embarrassing, humiliating. I was so angry. It was horrible.
Lydia Martinez says she's been involved in politics for decades and that she's never been involved in any voter fraud. We reached out to Attorney General Paxton's office for comment, but did not hear back. Omar Villafranca, CBS News, San Antonio, Texas.
Let's head overseas now. Russia says it launched another large barrage of rockets all over Ukraine. You're seeing the fallout there. This one included 10 hypersonic missiles, more than 80 drones. It's just the latest in a series of deadly airstrikes, including Sunday's drone attack that killed 3 people and targeted energy infrastructure. Saturday's missile strike killed a British journalist. Well, it's part of our promise to you here at CBS News 24/7. We are watching our video feeds all day long from all across our stations in the country. We are a family of journalists and a network at that. So we take you to Brooklyn, where a fire overnight left dozens without a place to live. Here's how CBS News New York covered it. Watch.
9 people were hurt, most of them firefighters, battling at a row of homes in Brooklyn. Natalie Dedridge is live in Ocean Hill with the latest. Natalie.
Well, Cindy, just moments ago, we spoke to a woman sitting in her car. She says she has nowhere else to go as of right now because her home was destroyed. And she tells us it was a terrifying experience trying to escape this fire that you can see here spread to multiple multi-family homes here along Dean Street. The FDNY says this fire broke out around 10:30 last night, and you can see that thick black smoke, flames shooting out of the roof and the windows. The FDNY tells us a man and a woman in their 70s are being treated at the hospital for smoke inhalation. Another 25-year-old woman is also being treated for injuries to her leg. Witnesses tell us they saw her have to jump out to safety. 6 firefighters also hurt. We are told they will be okay. Their injuries not life-threatening. Now, witnesses we spoke to say it was a chaotic situation trying to get out amid all of the smoke. We spoke to a man who lived in one of the destroyed apartments who says he tried to help a woman escape.
I heard somebody screaming. The lady was on the roof. She jumped. She said she broke her leg, and I jumped over to the other 2 gates over, and I was able to bring her out.
My friend now, he took everybody out, and some lady jumped out on the back of the window because she was trapped. When they saw the white smoke, they ran in here, and my son jumped on the canopy, and he got everybody out, most of the people out.
Now, the Red Cross says that they have registered 10 households. That includes 31 people, 9 children, 4 older adults, 10 pets for emergency assistance, temporary housing, as well as some financial assistance. Now, back out here live, still an active scene. The FDNY at one point had more than 180 firefighters here trying to get this under control. In fact, they also used drones this morning to try to locate any remaining hot spots. And we have also been seeing the fire marshal's office, at least 5 members members of the fire marshal's office out here. They are investigating, trying to determine exactly where this started and what caused it. We're in Brooklyn. Natalie Duddridge, CBS News, New York.
And CBS News New York and our teams, they're proving what we often say here on the stream. All stories, even though we're a national broadcast, are local stories. So our crews and our video feeds are also in communities in Minnesota. Another round of wet weather. If you live there today, you know that this is your reality. Powerful storms rolled through that region yesterday. In fact, we understand so powerful, snapped a lot of tree branches and forced a lot of people to take rides from the Minnesota State Fair in St. Paul just in their memories. They couldn't get on them. The severe weather comes. The Midwest is dealing with a late summer heat wave, and Jessica's watching that wave.
And it is hot over there. You take a look at the temperatures, and I mean, as we head all the way down into the south, we're dealing with triple digits, but we're used to that during this time of year. As we head all the way over into areas like Chicago, all throughout Indiana, and of course stretching over into Kansas and Nebraska too. We're sitting in the 90s today, and that's just our daytime highs right there. Our feels-like temperature can range anywhere up to around 110 degrees. So that's the reason why the National Weather Service has issued excessive heat warnings and advisories that will last throughout that region into the evening hours tonight and into our forecast tomorrow. You also see some gray on the map just right there too. Those are air quality alerts that also remain in effect. Now take a look right behind me. As we head into the coming days, this area of heat will still stay stagnant in areas like St. Louis, up into Chicago, all the way over into Cincinnati. Now from Kansas, stretching its way over into New York, we could see some pop-up storms into the evening hours tonight, early morning hours tomorrow. So we keep a close eye on Futurecast because these storms will pack their punch too. Not only are they dealing with hot days over there, but our severe weather outlook is showing a marginal to slight risk all throughout that region, like I mentioned, stretching all the way up into New York. So damaging winds are still in effect all throughout that area from from anywhere from Madison, Wisconsin, actually stretching over into Ohio. Yesterday, we had about 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts all the way up into Minnesota, but the system is starting to track off into the east. It continues to do so into the overnight hours tonight with a tornado threat in effect in that region. Reed.
Oh, man, our best thoughts to everybody. Was it tracks? We know you're tracking it. Jessica, thank you so much. Hey, that's it for us at CBS News 24/7. We thank you for watching. We'll continue watching our monitors day in and day out. Big news in politics today, and you'll see it when we see it. Thanks for watching.